My bad. We let a sex offender, a child sex offender, dressed up like a girl, redid those kids. That was probably not the best thing we could do, and we're sorry. That was great. They nailed it.
Soy boy Chloe is 110% organic, non-GMO, gender misogynist, identitarian.
And there's no need for anyone to think that is unacceptable. We're going to shut them down and work with whoever it is to shut them down, and they should be prosecuted. You cannot intimidate members of Congress.
Feel free to share this out. Hit the like button right now, guys. Hit the like button and share it out your social media platform. Thank you for all the support with SJG for your promotion, SJG Perspective Promotions. I said that better. Glad you guys are here.
Policy with the Ukraine vice president, and just because
shout out to VC, Carmageddon, Mohammed, Aloha Akbar. Yeah, I'm sure I didn't get anybody
about this job. How could you think for a minute that was inappropriate or that I did anything wrong? Even though I sat and I bragged about the fact I got this guy fired, and I told him I wasn't going to give him money if they did what I said, how can you think that I did anything wrong? This is just such a dumb question. And it can't believe we're entertaining.
He and all these other social media platform people say they struggle with figuring out what the line is and how to.
What's up, Brian?
Hate speech, but we also
kind of. Kind of had some technical
very
difficulties
simple.
for a second.
It's very simple. All you gotta do is follow the Constitution, follow the
unconnected and reconnected.
follow the Bill of Rights, follow the First Amendment.
Be elected president.
She says, Senator Kamala Harris said that
I'm gonna jump in. What's up, everybody? SJG Perspective. Thank you guys for joining me on this wonderful Wednesday night, hump day. Such a weird term. I was just telling my boss today that I think that's such a weird term, but trying to do this every day at about 7:30 for a kind of a short stream. Excuse me. Choked up for a second there. Yesterday went longer than the half an hour, so we're going to try to just keep it a little more on cue today. But there was a little bit of good news today. A little bit of good news, actually. I read an article that, before we jump in, make sure, I got to get back in the swing of everything I want to say in the beginning. If you guys could share this out for me, I'd really greatly appreciate it. Share it out, dump it out to wherever it is you social media at. And, that'll be good. And hit the like button. So, A little bit of good news. In this world of amazing headache and terrible ridiculousness that we kind of hear every day, and watching the cops, I always support the men in blue. But man, through this whole thing, a lot of the men in blue have had their heads up their brown hole when it comes to the way they've been enforcing stuff and acting like Stasis. And there's a little bit of hope on the horizon that this isn't going to always be the case, and that maybe there's a wind to blowing, a flame going to catch on here where this doesn't happen, and that cops start actually realizing that a lot of these rules and regulations that they are willingly enforcing are going to not continue. And hang on one second, guys. I really apologize. Oh no, she realized that I was on my stream. So then she probably stopped calling me. My son's dropping off his car because it broke down. So maybe that's why she was calling me. I hope so. Anyways, it wouldn't be SJG Perspective stream unless I get a call from my wife. So it said Orange County authorities won't enforce the mask requirement. We are not the mask police. Finally, the little bit of good news. Let's read a little bit of this article. Finally, some officers and some cops and some people are pulling their heads out. I agree with you, Lewis, and I'm actually going to touch on that. I totally agree with you. Don't get me sidetracked, Lewis, but remind me on that, because I do want to come back to the Minnesota police stuff. That's there's just no excuse. And I am not someone who jumps on a bandwagon before all the footage is out, before all the whole story is out. But we don't need to know the whole story. See, thanks a lot, Lewis. Thanks a lot. You got me sidetracked already. You don't need to know the whole story in Minnesota. The whole story was he was in handcuffs laying on his belly and he was subdued. At that time, you can get off his neck, especially when he says he can't breathe. There's just no excuse for that. None. I don't care what you show me. I don't care what Brandon Tatum. I don't know if Brandon Tatum's going to support this one. He supports a lot of the cop stuff, even when you got to go like, dude, seriously, well, what? But I don't care what anyone's going to try to say to defend that situation. That was just a horrible situation. But the media loves it, and they're latching onto it, and they're throwing the that Arbery deal all over. And again, the Arbery thing I think is terrible too. I don't think he was just this innocent going to college black man that was just out for a jog. I think he was prowling. He probably was stealing shit. But that wasn't the place of those guys to try to completely make arrest. He didn't make a violent attack on somebody. He didn't just beat somebody up. He wasn't a rape suspect. He wasn't, so it's kind of like, let him go and let the cops deal with it at that point. That was ridiculousness. But there has been... But the media, what they're doing is that they're fomenting all of this. And I am kind of jumping around with my points, but the dog lady, Karen, I think her name was Karen. I don't know if her name was Karen, but she's a Karen, right? She called on the black guy at the dog park, and she lost her job. She, I don't know. She just has been getting death threats, everything. Well, he's came out and said, whoa, guys, you're piling on a little hard here. You're piling on a little hard with this lady. I didn't want her to lose her job and everything else. And then when the media presents that, my point in bringing this up is because we are going to talk about media lies again tonight, because it's a hot button for me, because it's so prevalent. When the media covers that, like NPR's been running with that every day, they don't cover the part up to that where this guy was like being a bit of a Nazi himself. Put your dog on a leash, put your dog on a leash, put your dog on a leash, get your dog over here. If you don't do that, I'm going to do something you're not going to like it. None of that is covered, right? And then he's trying to sneak the dog over to him with some dog treats and said, if I get a hold of the dog, you're not going to like it. Something along those lines. So the lady's freaking out, right? And then they just pick up where she takes it too far. They both were acting like assholes. And, but the media only portrays it one way. The media always only portrays these one way. Always one way. That all cops are out to kill black guys. That all cops are evil. That all cops are, that it's just a war on black people. But they don't ever touch on the fact, or don't ever really hammer down on the fact of the black on black crime either, do they? They didn't, there wasn't much said about how many people were shot in Chicago over Memorial Day weekend, right? They don't talk about that kind of stuff. It's always just the white guys killing the black guys. And whenever that happens, they blow it out of proportion. They twist the narrative. They leave stuff out, and they present it because what they want is division. What the media wants, what they want from us is division, 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 division. Anger, anger, anger. We're also going to get to that with social media. But, Lewis, you threw me off track. So, anyways, I'll get back to that a little bit in here in a second. This one is the upside, right? Orange County Sheriff said Tuesday that his department has no intention of enforcing a recent health order requiring residents and visitors to wear face coverings in public. Can you think about where we're at in America, where the government is telling us we have to wear a mask when we go outside? The government, under the Stockholm Syndrome, I had a good friend listening to his rant the other night, Dustin Gold, Freedom Force TV. If you guys don't listen to Freedom Force, you should. He does not like Trump right now, I'll give you that. But he is a conservative. He is a patriot, hardcore. But he's just like, he's telling people what's up, man. He's not pulling any punches on anybody. But, you know, he basically brought up a very good point that now we're all living under the Stockholm Syndrome, where we are in love with, we are praising, we are bowing before our captors. They've got us so mind screwed that now the government comes back and says, okay, we're going to let you open up your businesses again. But you got to, but in order to do that, you got to keep people 6 feet apart. You got to have limited people in your business. They got to wear masks. We're gonna let you out of your house on house arrest, but you're not allowed to go to the beaches, right? Meanwhile, Walmart and all these big stores, they're open, but no, you can't have a barber shop open. The mentality right now that the Orange County has to even come out and say they're not going to enforce a law that forces people to wear a mask when they're out in public is sad in and of itself. That we're even at the point where we have to do that. If you're sick, if you're potentially sick, if you have a compromised immune system, then stay home. Then don't come out. That's your right. That's probably a good move for you. If you have a family member that has a compromised immune system and you want to protect them, then don't go over there until you know you're not an asymptomatic carrier, right? Let's protect the vulnerable population. I get that, okay? You should do that even in flu season that kills a whole bunch of people. You should be more cognizant about that, right? But the fact of what we're doing and what we've done for this, it's insanity. And we're not going to go into, because it's been pounded home so many times right now. I'm not going to go into all of that. I am going to bring up some critical thinking parts here, or some thoughts for some critical thinking that we need to spread the word. We need to get angry. We need to push back. This is we are literally sliding down the slope, not even sliding down the slope of socialism. We're jumping straight into communism. Government-controlled means of production. The government controls everything and tells us what we can and can't do. And I got to tell you, I really want to be able, I want to be able to support Trump in 2020. But at this point, what the hell does it matter? If you have forgetful old Joe in there, or a guy that's not going to keep his word and is going to flip-flop around. What's the point? What's the point of either one of them? It's proven what I've always felt and what I had put aside for a while, that the presidents are puppets. They're puppets. And the people need to rise up and get pissed and take back their government. We need to get really effing pissed off. I am all about it. I think it's time to get angry. And I'm not talking about shooting things up or whatnot. What I'm talking about is pushing back and being angry and not compliant and not having a Stockholm Syndrome and taking the crap that we're being fed right now, because it's absolute crap. Anyways, we're not the mass police, nor do I intend to be the mass police, Sheriff Don Barnes told the County Board of Supervisors. I think what we have seen repeatedly throughout the community is Orange County residents acting responsibly. Of course, I think it was Orange County Sheriff that was like going to arrest a guy who wanted gates taken down. So maybe they're waking up, but it's not like they've been golden on this either. There's only been a handful of officers that have stepped up and pushed back on this, and they end up losing their job. You speak out against the narrative, you speak out against the man that's programming us, you lose your job. It's fucking insanity. Pardon my French. I don't think it's French, but I'm sorry. They can take the protective measures as they see fit, he said. We have not dealt with these issues through enforcement, and I will direct my staff not to direct any enforcement towards the mask requirement. So glad to hear that. This is the good news part. The sheriff's declaration came in response to a question from the chairwoman, Michelle Steele, who asked how the department planned to enforce health order issued Friday. The requirement mandates that the Orange County residents wear a cloth face covering while in public place, at work, or visiting a business where they are unable to stay at least 6 feet apart. Who came up with the 6 feet apart too? Why isn't it 10 feet apart or 12 feet apart? If 6 feet apart's good, wouldn't 10 feet apart be even better? And if you're 6 feet apart and that's all you need to be safe, why do you got to wear a mask? But if the mask's worse, why do you got to be 6 feet away? Why? Questions. The mask ordinance is similar to the one implemented in Los Angeles County more than a month ago, where authorities have also said they are hoping the public will comply voluntarily. Why are you hoping we'll comply voluntarily? Because if we don't, you'll put your jack boot on the back of our neck? Yeah, that is what they're planning on doing. And you know what? Here's another thing I touched on last night. If people don't get scared again, they're going to give us a reason to. I guarantee you that. And that's why we can't be complacent and just kind of go along with this little bit of a little bit of our freedoms are back, and we should be happy with that. The bread, the crumbs from the bread, the table are being swept off, and we should be okay with that now. Just take your breadcrumbs and move along. Be happy. No, we should get pissed off. We should push back. We should write letters. We should make posts. We should tell friends. We should tell family. When we go out in public, we shouldn't wear a mask. If they tell us to put a mask on, we should cause a scene. This is absolutely insanity. And we need to push back against it. See, I'm kind of censoring myself. I really want to I want to do a hard F on that bomb. But I'm pulling back because I know we could have some sensitive ears listening. I know we got some Christian people listening, and I'm trying not to offend anybody. But I'm really angry. So maybe that's my way. I'll do a soft F-bomb instead of a hard F-bomb. Just saying. Los Angeles County Sheriff Alex Villanueva. I'm terrible at names. You guys all know this. And LAPD Chief Michelle Moore said they had no plans to cite anyone for not wearing a mask, but authorities would offer a few words of encouragement from behind their own face coverings. Orange County health officials had previously said wearing a facial covering is an important tool in fighting against COVID-19, but they had stopped short of mandating such efforts. The new mask requirement came just before Orange County received state approval to more broadly lift coronavirus-related business restrictions and resume in-restaurant dining and in-store shopping. Orange County on Tuesday reported 110, not thousand, not million, 110 new COVID-19 infections, bringing its cumulative total in Orange County to 5,500 people. All of this in Orange County, 5,500 people. You think of it just even on the nationwide. We have 100,000 deaths, which we covered last night, which a great majority of those weren't COVID deaths. And the other great majority of those would have died from the flu or pneumonia this year. Anyways, not to say that isn't sad they died, but it's like you have a 97% recovery rate. Some ridiculous number, right? Very high. And we've done all of this. Anyways, I don't think I need to read all of this. The figure includes an estimated 1,900 people who have recovered from the disease. The first time the Orange County Health Care Agency has enumerated that data point. Yeah, see, that's the thing about the data points. They don't want to enumerate them. They don't want to make it clear to you the shit show that we're under. They don't want to do that. We don't want to have mass. We talk about mass testing. They don't really want mass testing. They don't want everybody in America tested because you know what they would find out? Hundreds of millions of people. We have 325 million people in America. There would be a I bet you there's 200 million people or more that have been infected with COVID-19. I would bet you it's that high. And they didn't even know it. I'm pretty sure I had it. I talked to so many people say I'm pretty sure I had it too. And I bet you we're going to have the antibodies. I bet you we would test, they would test fine, they would test for it. And then all of a sudden, what would that do to the narrative? If there was hundreds of millions of people, if there was 50 million people or 100 million people, 1/3 of America had it. And this many people have died, we'd be like, what? Okay, it was kind of an inflated, even taking the numbers, right? Even taking the numbers at face value that all of them were COVID deaths. If you had a couple 100 million people or 100 million people and you had 100,000 deaths, you'd be like, okay, yeah, it's about right in line with the flu. A little more, not much. But they don't want that because that destroys the narrative. That destroys what they're trying to do with putting dystopian, authoritarian, totalitarian, all the Aryan laws and restrictions on you. That's what that screws up. That screws up that narrative. Them forcing you to take a vaccine to get back to normal or accept the new normal. That's why they don't want that. They want to vaccinate us. Right? They want that. They want to take away your civil liberties. They want to surveil you. They want to be able to surveil you. I think that's where the 6 feet comes into play too, is that it's hard to surveil somebody when phones are closer than 6 feet apart. I think that's really what the deal is. But you know what? Here's Judge McHaney speaks his mind in a Friday afternoon case. This, I think, sums it up so beautifully well. And I wanted to read all of this to you guys because I just think it's such a great kind of synopsis and breakdown of this whole thing. I'm going to blow this up a little bit so maybe you guys can see. I don't know if you can see. It doesn't matter. I'll read it. Judge McHaney speaks his mind in Friday afternoon case. Chief Judge Michael McHaney of Clay County had this to say at the conclusion of the case he heard yesterday afternoon, Maynard versus Pritzker in the Clay County courtroom. Should we look at what Maynard, I don't know. Look it up. Somebody can look it up if they want to. Since the inception of this insanity, the following regulations, rules, or consequences have occurred. I won't get COVID if I go get an abortion, but I will get COVID if I get a colonoscopy. Selling pot is essential, but selling goods and services at a family-owned business is not. Pot wasn't even legal, and pot dispensaries didn't even exist in this state until 5 months ago, and in that 5 months, they've become essential. But a family-owned business in existence for 5 generations, it's not. Family of 6 can pile into a car and drive to the Carlisle Lake without contracting COVID, but if they all get into the same boat, they will. We are told that the kids rarely contract the virus and sunlight kills it, but summer youth programs, sports programs are canceled. 4 people can drive to the golf course and not get COVID, but if they play a foursome, they will. If I go to Walmart, I won't get COVID, but if I go to church, I will. Murderers are released from custody while small business owners are threatened with arrest if they have the audacity to attempt to feed their families. These are just a few of the examples of rules, regulations, and consequences that are arbitrary, capricious, and completely devoid of anything even remotely approaching common sense. Amen! State's attorneys in the state, county sheriffs, mayors, city councils, and county boards have openly and publicly defied these orders, followed by threats to withhold funding and revocation of necessary licenses and certifications unless you obey. Our economy is shut down because of a flu. I want to reread that and stick that a little more. State attorneys in this state, county sheriffs, mayors, city councils, and county boards have openly and publicly defied these orders, followed by threats to withhold funding, revocation of necessary licenses, and certifications unless you obey them. Rules for thee, not for me. Our economy is shut down because of a flu virus with a 98% survival rate. Doctors and experts say different things weekly. The defendant cites models in his opposition. The only thing experts will agree on is that all models are wrong and some are useful. Meaning, what the? The Centers of Disease Control now says the virus is not easily spread on surfaces. The defendant in this case orders you to stay home and pronounce that. If you leave the state, you are putting people in danger. But his family members traveled to Florida and Wisconsin because he deems such travel essential. One initial rationale why the rule doesn't apply to him is that his family farm had animals that needed to be fed. Try selling that argument to farmers who have to slaughter their herds because of the disruption in the supply chain. Amen to that. I like this judge. When laws do not apply to those who make them, people are not being governed, they are being ruled. I'm going to repeat that. When laws do not apply to those who make them, people are not being governed, they are being ruled. And make no mistake, these executive orders are not laws. They're not laws. They have nothing to do with the Constitution. They're not laws. I think in the very beginning of this, for a very short window, it was wise to be cautious. I said last night, and I'll say it again, if this virus and disease was as bad as they said it was, if it was contagion level Ebola, you bleed out your ass and die in 3 days, you wouldn't need to tell people or force people to stay home. People would say, F that, I'm not going to work, I'm taking care of my family and locking my doors at home until this thing passes or we figure it out. But that wasn't the case. This was induced, pushed, manufactured fear that this is the worst thing since Ebola. And you need to be deathly scared of it. And we're going to take your rights away because we love you and we care for you, your big daddy government, and we're here for you. So we're going to remove some of your rights. because we're here to save you. That was the narrative that's being pushed up to this point, and it's all a candy shell narrative, a candy shell, and we need to break it. Break it with our anger. Get pissed. Get fucking pissed. It's time to get pissed. Don't stand by and be like, well, make a statement and get angry and push back on this. Don't let your freedoms fall. Don't let your freedoms slide. Get angry and push back. They are royal decrees. Illinois citizens are not being governed. They are being ruled. The last time I checked, Illinois citizens were also Americans, and Americans don't get ruled. Well, I'd argue with you there that we kind of have been MK Ultra getting ruled for a long time, and we've gotten anesthetized to it, and we just kind of go along with it. But I get the heart of what he's trying to say. We're not ruled. We're Americans. We're free on paper. The last time I checked, Illinois citizens are also Americans. Oh, I just read that. The last time a monarch tried to rule Americans, a shot was fired that was heard around the world. That day led to the birth of a nation consensually governed based upon a document which ensures that on this day, in this any American courtroom, tyrannical despotism will always lose, and liberty, freedom, and the Constitution will always win. I feel like that was part of this good news. You have law enforcement coming out and saying, no, we're not going to enforce this. You have judges pushing back and saying, this is ridiculous. Think about everything I just read. How ridiculous this is. And how we've been so dumbed down and numbed down to accept it for as long as we have. Why do we even know what we know about the CV? I have to say that because of the dystopian world or the authoritarian platforms that I'm on. If I actually say what it is, the algorithm's going to hear what I said, and it's going to like cancel this or shadow ban this. That's how crazy it is, right? Why do we know about what we know about when it comes to CV? Where do we get our information primarily from? The media, right? The media. The same media that did this. This is an example of the ridiculousness of our media. And you guys can't see it because I didn't share the screen. I'm sharing it now. This is a great example, a small example. An example that I came across today and I'm like, that kind of fits into what I want to talk about, what I want to say. This kind of hits the point home. Report. Local news stations run a segment that is scripted and produced by Amazon. Here's the funny thing on this. We will let me blow this up so we all can see it here. What you're about to see is presented to you as news, parroted, scripted and parroted, and we've seen these kind of collages you're going to see where different squares of all the same news people saying the same thing. But it's a reminder that we get all of our information from these sources that ran a scripted Amazon promo and sold it as news, as journalism, as something we should be proud of. Let me show you what I'm talking about.
Millions of Americans staying at home are relying on Amazon.
Millions of Americans staying at home are relying on Amazon.
Millions of Americans staying at home are relying on Amazon.
Millions of Americans staying at home are relying on Amazon.
Amazon has transformed its operations in response to COVID-19 to protect employees and keep packages flowing.
Amazon has transformed its operations in response to COVID-19 to protect employees and keep packages flowing.
The company is keeping its employees safe and healthy while still delivering those packages to your doorstep.
The company is keeping employees safe and healthy.
The company is keeping its employees safe and healthy.
The company is keeping its employees safe and healthy.
The company is keeping its employees safe and healthy.
The company is keeping its employees safe and healthy.
The company is keeping its employees safe and healthy. The company is keeping its employees safe and healthy.
It spent $800 million on increased wages and overtime pay during the pandemic.
It has spent $800 million on increased wages and overtime pay during the pandemic.
It has spent $800 million on increased wages and overtime pay during the pandemic.
It has spent $800 million on increased wages and overtime pay during the pandemic.
Amazon says it has spent $800 million on increased wages and overtime pay during the pandemic.
Every single one of Amazon's workforce of nearly 1 million people has played a critical role in making these changes happen.
I hope that they feel that passion that we have for safety,
so they can stay safe and healthy while you do too.
Isn't that great? Isn't that just absolutely amazing how they sell that to you, to me, to us? They sell that to us as that's the news, and it is a scripted propaganda. It's scripted propaganda for you and for me and for everyone out there. It's amazing to me, and we sit back and we let it happen. We sit back and we let it happen. I did want to cover one more subject. My son is here and needs help, though, pushing his truck into the right spot. So I'll save my next segment on the social media sewer for tomorrow, because I do want these only to be like a quick little half an hour type thing. But here's the thing I'm gonna end up by saying. We need to get angry. We need to get frustrated. We need to push back. We need to not believe the stories that are told us. We need to use our critical thinking, use your own mind, judge these incidents and situations as they are for themselves, by themselves. And don't be manipulated. Don't be controlled anymore. Push back on this, people. Push back, raise your voice, and get angry. Angry and fight for your rights. Fight for your constitutional rights. Fight for your freedoms. Fight for these things. Because if we don't, they're going away. So I'm going to jump off. I appreciate everybody that hung out tomorrow night. We're going to do it at 7:30 again. I'm going to have a guest on tomorrow night. No, don't know who that's going to be yet, but tomorrow will be a little bit longer show. I really appreciate you guys hanging out for the times that you did. And until next time, it's SJG Perspective without fear or animus. And I appreciate you guys, and we'll talk to you later. Have a great night. Bye.